Hi, we will be talking about conclusion paragraphs. So, conclusion paragraphs are the final paragraph in your essay, and it's the last thing that the readers will remember about your writing. So, think for a moment, what is a concluding paragraph? What goes in a concluding paragraph? Why are they important? And how are conclusions similar to introductions, and how are they different? So as we go through the PowerPoint, I want you to think about these questions, and hopefully by the end you'll be able to answer them. So strong concluding paragraphs. They take all of your ideas from the essay and they show how the main ideas go together. So you don't just repeat your ideas, because the reader already read that. They already know. You want to show how they go together, how they influence each other. Strong concluding paragraphs also might give a warning. What should the reader be worried about? For some essays, you might be trying to convince the reader that something is a problem or that they need to change their behavior. If that's what you're doing, you might want to give them a warning. Or, number 3 here, a call for action. What should the reader do with the information in your essay? So this word do, that means action, right? So what action should the reader take? How should they change their behavior? Something else you can do in a conclusion is make the reader think about the question or a question. What should the reader continue to think about or learn about after reading your essay? So you've given the reader some information on a topic. Maybe you've given them your opinion. What should the reader do next? So again, this is like an action, but maybe not a specific behavior. You might be telling the reader that they should go get more information about something in order to make a decision for themselves. You might be telling the reader that they need to go talk to people from a certain place or learn about something new. Something else you can do in your conclusion is relate it back to your introduction. This can be tricky, and students do this really well. So sometimes you tell a story in your introduction, and a nice way to wrap up your conclusion is to bring it back to that story. So if you talk about yourself in the introduction, maybe go back to yourself in the conclusion. If you tell a story about someone in the introduction, go back to that story. And show how the information in your essay relates back to that first idea or that first story. These are all ideas. You probably aren't going to do all of these in one conclusion. That would be a lot. It depends on your reader and the purpose of your essay. Some common mistakes that are seen in introductions. The first is just repeating the thesis statement and topic sentences. Many people are told, oh yes, the conclusion is just a summary. Well, the reader already read everything. They don't need a summary. They know it. So don't just repeat the thesis and topic sentences, because that leaves the reader bored. And you don't want to make your reader bored in the last part. Also, don't give new specific information or support. The conclusion is not a time to give new examples, to give new facts or statistics. Like the introduction, it should be pretty general and broad. Another mistake that's seen a lot is when writers become too emotional in their conclusion. So maybe they write this academic essay, about eating healthy, and then in the end they're getting very emotional. They start using exclamation points. They're telling the reader what to do, but in a way that's like yelling at the reader. You want to be careful not to do that. And then finally, a huge mistake, a very common mistake, is not relating the information to your reader. So in the conclusion, you really want to make sure you leave the reader with understanding why you wrote this and what you want the reader to do with this information. You wrote this essay for a reason, and a good reason. So what do you want your reader to do next, or think about next, or remember? Okay, so here's an example conclusion. Over here on the left, we have 3 things that are needed to live a happy, healthy life. So this is our thesis statement from the essay. Down here, we have the 3 main points. The first paragraph that they wrote about talked about exercise. The second body paragraph talked about healthy diet. And the third body paragraph talked about a positive attitude. So over here, this is the main idea of this essay, okay? The thesis was that there are 3 things you need to have a happy, healthy life, and these are the main points of each body paragraph. Over here on the right, we have our conclusion. So let's look at this together. Changing our lives to be happier and healthier can be overwhelming. By understanding the 3 components necessary, we can begin to tackle each one by one. Often these 3 overlap and influence one another, creating a cycle. If you start exercising more, your body will naturally want healthier food to keep it fueled. Further, the endorphins and extra energy you gain will help you have a positive attitude. Similarly, feeling positive about ourselves will lead us to want to take care of our bodies, and therefore we will eat well and exercise more. Keep a daily journal to see how you are doing and keep track of your progress. Tell your friends and get support from your family. And most importantly, continue to find what makes you happiest and healthiest. Okay, so let's break this down. This first part, changing our lives to be happier and healthier, can be overwhelming. By understanding the 3 components necessary, we can begin to tackle each one by one. This part really relates to the reader. They recognize that the reader might feel overwhelmed. Oops. The reader just read all about these things that they need to do, and sometimes that can be scary. So they're relating to the reader, and then they're trying to show the reader how they can overcome this problem by tackling the components necessary. Tackle one by one. Often these 3 overlap and influence one another, creating a cycle. This part here about if you exercise, you'll want healthy food. This will help you also have a positive attitude. And if you have a positive attitude, it'll help you exercise and have a healthy diet. So the author is not just repeating these 3 things. The author is showing that these 3 parts influence each other. They are related to each other. So they're putting them together again. Down here it says, keep a daily journal to see how you are doing. Tell your friends. And most importantly, find what makes you happiest and healthiest. So this is like a call to action. They're telling the readers specific actions that they should do. They should have a daily journal, write down what they're doing. They should tell their friends and family, and they should find what makes them happiest. So those are specific actions that they want the reader to take so that the reader can then have this happy, healthy life. Okay, so this is a chance for you to try. So go back to your essay and ask yourself, what are your main points? How do these points connect to each other? How do they influence each other? Then ask yourself, why is this information important for your reader? This is a really important question, right? Why should your reader care about this? Why are your ideas important? How can it change how your reader understands his or her life? Down here, what do you want your reader to think about in the future? So what should they start thinking about? What do you want the reader to do? What actions should they take? Finally, how do you introduce your topic in the introduction? Can you bring your ideas back to that background information or hook and tie it together that way?